Değerli misafirler, günün 3. oturumu için bir aradayız. Bir kez daha hoş geldiniz. Arama ve üretim sektöründe yabancı yatırım stratejileri başlıklı oturumumuza geçmeden önce açılış konuşmaları için Enerji ve Tabii Kaynaklar Bakan Yardımcısı Profesör Doktor Şeref Kalaycı'yı kürsüye davet ediyorum. Buyurunuz efendim.
Teşekkür ederim. Bu yoğun programlardan sonra, ilk gün programlarından sonra katılımcılarımız herhalde dinlenmeyi seçtiler. Ama önemli değil, biz bize yeteriz. Değerli katılımcılar, petrol arama ve üretim sektörünün kıymetli yöneticileri ve çalışanları, saygıdeğer hazirun. Öncelikle bu toplantıda aranızda bulunmaktan duyduğum mutluluğu belirterek sözlerime başlamak istiyorum. Tabii ki programı hazırlayanlar, yabancı yatırımcılar üzerinden bir başlık ile bir oturum düzenlemişler. Ama biz bakanlık olarak ülkemizde yatırım yapan herkesi kendi yatırımcımız olarak görüyor ve öyle sahipleniyoruz. Bizim ülkemizde petrol ve doğalgaz aramacılığı yapan, bu yolda elini taşın altına koyan herkesi Enerji ve Tabii Kaynaklar Bakanlığı olarak kucaklıyoruz. Türkiye bugün ay ay değişmekle birlikte petrolde %8-10 arasında bir yerli üretime sahiptir. Bu oranı artırmamız gerekiyor. Bu hem enerjide dışa bağımlılığımızın azalması anlamına geliyor, hem de cari açığımızın azalması anlamına geliyor. Enerjide bu hedeflere varabilmek için yatırım miktarını, ekipman miktarını, nitelikli insan gücünü artırmamız gerekiyor. Bizim bir sloganımız var biliyorsunuz. Varsa bulacağız. Biz bilimsel verilere bakarak büyük olmasa da ülkemizde yeterli rezervin var olduğunu, bu rezervlerin bulunabileceğine inanıyoruz. Bu anlamda aramacılık fevkalade önemlidir. Biliyorsunuz ülkemiz coğrafyasında jeofizik ve jeokimya çalışmaları tamamlandı. Ancak ülkemiz coğrafyasının sadece %30'unun sondajı yapıldı henüz. Daha %70'lik kısmının sondajlanması gerekiyor. Türkiye'de petrol ve gaz üretim ve aramasında bulunan şirketlerle ilgili çok özet rakamlar arz edeyim müsaadenizle. 2019 yılı Ağustos ayı itibariyle ülkemizdeki petrol ve doğal gaz sektöründe 42 şirket faaliyet göstermektedir. Sermaye yapıları bakımından bu şirketlerin 24 tanesi yerli sermayeli, 18 tanesi ise yabancı sermayeli şirketlerdir. Son 17 yılda ülkemizde bu sektör kapsamında 10 milyar dolar civarında yatırım yapılmış olup bunun %40'ı yabancı sermayeli şirketler eliyle gerçekleştirilmiştir. Bu oranın daha da artmasını arzu ediyoruz. Ruhsat sayıları hakkında da bilgi vereyim. Yine 2019 yılı Ağustos ayı sonu itibariyle toplamda 287 adet petrol arama ruhsatı bulunmaktadır. Bu ruhsatların 216 tanesi TPAO'ya aittir. İşletme ruhsat sayımız ise 160 adettir. Bunların 89 adedi TPAO'ya ait, bir tanesi TTK'ya aittir. Kalan 70 tanesi özel teşebbüslerimize aittir. Son yıllarda petrol fiyatlarındaki dalgalanmaların üretim ve arama tarafındaki olumsuz etkilerini görüyoruz. Petrol şirketlerinin birçoğu yatırım stratejilerini değiştirerek daha az yatırım yoluna gidiyorlar. Uluslararası Enerji Ajansı'nın hazırladığı Dünya Enerji Yatırımları 2018 yılı raporuna göre petrol ve gaz sektöründe 716 milyar dolar yatırım yapılırken elektrik üretim ve tedarik tarafında 750 milyar dolar yatırım yapıldı. Küresel petrol ve gaz upstream yatırımları 2014'ten sonra 3 yıl arka arkaya inanılmaz geriledi. 2015'te %25 düştü. Bunun üzerine 2016 yılında %26 daha düştü. 2017 yılında %4 yükseldi. 2018 yılı sonunda da %5'lik bir büyüme olduğu düşünülüyor. Burada en büyük darbeyi offshore yatırımları aldı. En hızlı artan da shale ve sıkı petrol oldu. Bu yatırımlar içerisinde devlet şirketlerinin rolü çok büyük. 2018 yılında açıklanan yatırımlarda PetroChina en yüksek yatırımı yapan şirket oldu. Diğer büyük bağımsız şirketler de hemen arkasından geliyor. 2017-2018'de yatırımların daha büyük bir bölümü karalara kaymış durumda. Devlet şirketlerinin yatırımlardaki oranı da 2015'teki %38'lerden 2018'de %44'lere çıktı. Bulunan rezervlerde de düşüş devam ediyor. Doğalgazda önemli keşifler yapıldı. Ama rezervlerin daha da artması gerekiyor. Belki daha da önemlisi, yeni yani greenfield yatırımlar yerine mevcut yatırımları geliştirme, brownfield yatırımlarda bir artış var. Yani şirketler sıfırdan yatırıma girmek yerine ellerindeki varlıkları daha iyi değerlendirmeyi tercih ediyorlar. Greenfield yatırımların oranı 2015 yılında %41'den 2018 yılında %38'e düşmüş durumda. Bu rakam Rusya gibi büyük rezervlere sahip bir ülkede %44'lerden %29'lara düşmüş durumda. Bu küresel görünümden bizim okuduğumuz iki önemli husus var. Birincisi, yeterli petrol ve doğalgaz yatırımı gelmiyor. Üretim artışlarının önemli kısmı zaten bulunmuş olan sahalardan geliyor. Bu da fiyatlarda belirsizlik riskini uzun vadede artırıyor. Son yıllardaki düşük enerji talebi, dünyada yatırımları daha çok mevcut varlıkları iyi kullanmaya yöneltmiş gözüküyor. Ama eğer dünya talebi 2020'lerle tekrar hızlanırsa bir 2005-2008 fiyat dönemini tekrar görebiliriz. Şu anda küresel ekonominin kötü durumu ve ABD üretimiyle baskılanan petrol fiyatları tekrar uzun vadeli bir hareketlenmeye girebilir. Bu sebeple kendi cari açığımız ve toplumsal refahımız için güneş, rüzgar kadar petrol ve gaz sektörü yatırımlarımızı bugünden hızlandırmalıyız. İkinci önemli husus, maliyet düşüş baskılarını görüyoruz. Yani artık petrol ve gaz aramacılığı daha teknolojik, daha maliyetlere dikkat eden ve daha hızlı hareket etmek zorundadır. Bu Türkiye'de de bu istikamette olacaktır. Şirketler kendi maliyetlerini yönetebildiklerinden biz o tarafta bir şey diyemeyiz. Ama düzenleyici riskler ve bürokratik maliyetleri düşürmek de bizim görevimiz. Düzenleyici riskleri ve bürokratik maliyetleri düşürmek için biz de şeffaflık ve dijitalleşmeye büyük önem veriyoruz. Tüm işlemlerin elektronik ortamda halledilmesi, süreçlerin tüm taraflara açık ilerlemesi ve bu sürelerin tamamen ölçülebilir olması mevcut stratejilerimizde var. Bu noktada yerli kaynak üreticilerimizin tüm işlemlerini 2019 yılı sonuna kadar elektronik ortama taşıyacağız. Sizleri de mümkünse hiç bekletmeden en şeffaf süreçlerle yatırımınızı hayata geçirmeye teşvik edeceğiz. Geçtiğimiz son 2 yıl içinde biz buna performans sistemini de ekledik. Yani işlemlerin daha kısa sürede bitirilmesi ilgili kurumlarımızın görevi haline geldi. Biz de Türkiye'ye güvenen ve yatırım yapan yatırımcımızı, yani yabancı yerli ayrım olmaksızın, böyle bir ayrım zaten yok, tamamını en etkin, hızlı ve şeffaf bir bürokratik yapıyla destekleyerek maliyetlerini azaltacağız. İkinci önem verdiğimiz husus, teknoloji ve insan kaynağına önem veriyoruz. Süper bilgisayarlar, yeni teknikler, drone ve yapay zeka gibi teknolojileri kullanarak hem yaptığımız işte verimi artırabiliriz, hem de ciddi maliyet avantajları elde edebiliriz. Ben biliyorum ki bu teknolojileri en çok içselleştiren şirketler petrol ve gaz şirketleridir. Nitelikli insan kaynağına her sektörün olduğu gibi petrol ve gaz sektörünün de ihtiyacı var. Türkiye'de petrol ve gaz aramacılığında daha kalifiye iş gücünü nasıl yetiştiririz? Biz devlet olarak maden meslek liselerini yapmaya başladık. Ancak daha başka hangi okulların açılması gerektiği, hangi standartların getirilmesi gerektiği konularında sektörün önerilerine açığız. Bir de sizlere teşekkür etmem gereken bir husus var. Çevreye saygı, bölge insanıyla iyi ilişkiler çok önemli. Bugüne kadar sizler bize hiçbir kötü olay getirmediniz. Hatta enerji ve maden sektörünün tamamında en başarılı sosyal, ekonomik ve çevresel faaliyetler petrol ve gaz şirketleri tarafından yürütülüyor. Bu örnek projelerin devamını diliyorum. Burada konuşulanların bizler için de yol gösterici ve ufuk açıcı olacağını şimdiden belirtmek isterim. Biz birbirinden öğrenmesi gereken kurumlar ve insanlarız. Bakanlık olarak da sizleri dinlemeye daima hazırız. Tekrar tüm davetlilere katılımları için teşekkür ediyorum. Ayrıca bu etkinliğin düzenlenmesinde emeği geçen herkese teşekkürlerimi sunuyorum. İnşallah bugün tartışacaklarımız sektörümüzü daha da ileri götürecektir temennisiyle sözlerimi noktalıyor. Sizleri saygı ve sevgiyle selamlıyorum. Please feel free to express your ideas over here.
Sayın Kalaycı'ya konuşmaları için teşekkür ediyoruz ve oturumumuza geçiyoruz. Bir kez daha hatırlatmak gerekirse arama ve üretim sektöründe yabancı yatırım stratejileri başlığında olacak bu oturumumuz. Öncelikle oturumumuzun moderatörünü, ardından konuşmacılarımızı hem sizlere takdim edip hem de sahneye davet edeceğim. Hormuz Trace Partnership Direktörü Serkan Şahin, buyurunuz. Telimer Yatırım Bankacılığı ve Doğal Kaynaklar Eş Başkanı Andrew Moorfield, siz de buyurunuz. Arar Petrol CEO'su Christo Goy, siz de sahneye davet ediyoruz ve Platform Arama Üretim Grubu Başkanı Sayın Murat Kalay, Türkiye Enerji CEO'su Şanges, sizi de sahneye davet edelim ve oturumumuz başlıyor efendim.
Deneme. Ses, evet. Herkese teşekkürler ilk önce. Burada bulunduğunuz için. 2 günlük yorucu bir organizasyonun ardından öğleden sonra hala oturumlara katılmak, burada dinlemek kolay değil. Dışarıda hava çok güzel olmayacaktı. 2 gündür hep bir yağmur beklentisi var ama sürekli bir güneş çıkıyor. Herhalde bu da hani böyle durduk yere bir dışarıda kalma, dışarıda daha fazla zaman geçirme dürtüsü oluşturuyor herhalde. Ama yine de buradakilere tekrar teşekkür etmek istiyorum. Ben müsaade ederseniz oturumu ben de dahil İngilizce devam etmek istiyorum. Burada konuşmacıların çoğu da İngilizce olduğu için ben sadece ufak bir hatırlatmak istedim. Eğer tercüman ihtiyacı olanlar varsa oturumun tamamı İngilizce devam edecek. Onu size bildirmek istedim. So, I would like to, first of all, I would like to thank all the speakers here for being here. It's like a very valuable, like very highly experienced speakers in here. Today we would like to talk about the upstream opportunities in Turkey. And so as Mr. Minister mentioned, so currently it's the highly challenging environment for upstream investments. So greenfield investments are just going down globally. Turkey is trying to find out what kind of opportunities they can create in this kind of challenging environment. So it's very important to talk to the operators currently operating in Turkey because actually they are inside the business. So most probably they will give us the best picture of what's going on and how we can improve, because Turkey desperately needs every single drop of oil that could be produced in Turkey. So just there was a quick short introduction for the speakers. I will not just make another introduction if you don't mind. So just to quickly start, I would like to invite Mr. Moorfield to the stage for his presentation. So he will make us a presentation about the global upstream investment environment and also just to give us an idea, like some feedback from the investors and lenders and what good or bad things other governments, other states did to increase their upstream foreign investment environment. So if all is ready, Mr. Moorfield, please feel free.
Good, thank you. Hopefully this is working. Thank you very much. I've got Serkan's cue that it's the end of the day and everyone's a little tired, so I'll make this quite brief and hopefully quite upbeat as well. My bank concentrates on raising capital for natural resource projects in frontier and emerging markets. And I think one of the challenges in this conference is there's an air of, dare I say, a little bit of gloom that Turkey is challenging to get international financing. It isn't. And I've raised financing for far more difficult countries in far more difficult projects. Turkey is eminently financeable. And I just wanted, if I can, to give you a little overview of the market. If I press the right button, which I have. First of all, I will keep this very brief, by the way, too. First of all, in terms of global oil and gas projects, there's an awful lot of them. There is a belief that oil and gas, hydrocarbons are dead, that it's a dead industry. This is not a dead industry. It's over $210 billion invested this year alone. And if you can see, it is all across the globe. It goes from North America down to South America, across to Australia, across to Asia. And more importantly, it covers upstream, midstream, and downstream. It covers all sectors. This is not a dead sector. This is a vibrant, large, important sector attracting significant amounts of capital. The second argument is that oil and gas is very much for emerging markets. Well, let's kill that myth. 60 billion, sorry, the slides are a little bit unsettled here, but $60 billion, or roughly a third of all international oil and gas expenditures, will be spent in Europe this year. And by Europe, I mean overwhelmingly the North Sea. The North Sea is surrounded by Scotland, Norway, Holland, bits of England, all of which are seen as sort of old economies and not vibrant oil and gas sectors. But not vibrant oil and gas sectors, it still is attracting billions of dollars. And lastly, Europe is very much underweight. It's all about the North Sea, and then there's a little bit towards Greece, which is really about infrastructure, and it's all about gas. So taking a step back, there's a large amount of money invested into global oil and gas across the world and across all sectors. Europe is a major beneficiary of this oil and gas investment, and unfortunately it's all weighted towards the North Sea. Some would say that fact is that's a bias towards the North Sea. I'm actually going to interpret that's actually an opportunity for other countries, Turkey being the primary one. First of all, I've been asked to talk a little bit about what governments are doing right and governments are doing wrong. I've kept this very simple. My source, by the way, is from oil and gas companies. And just as background, I've done oil and gas deals in the last 2 years in Tanzania, Angola, Nigeria, DRC, North Sea, North America. So I think I've got a fairly good view of emerging markets. And there's a common theme coming out. And I'm going to use the word stable and predictable boringly, repeatedly. Stable and predictable taxation policies are key. And I'll give you an example of a country which spectacularly fouled up its oil and gas system, and that was the United Kingdom, which is generally seen, pre-Brexit, as a source of stability. In 2010, the then Chancellor, the Treasurer, George Osborne, decided to increase taxation in the North Sea by 50%, 60 to 90%. It was the most ludicrous decision ever, and it was designed to try and lower petrol prices. Absolutely no logic at all with the North Sea. But what it did have the effect was crippling oil and gas investment into the North Sea for the next 5 years. Absolutely crippling effect. It was a politician response. It was, quite frankly, an utterly inane response, and it crippled oil and gas investment. So stable and predictable taxation policies are key. And I've got to say the fact is there is a thought process amongst many banks and some international investors that stable and predictable taxation policies belong in the OECD. They don't. In fact, some of the most emerging markets and frontier markets have very stable and predictable taxation policies. It is not it's not true to say that stability is just solely the purview of the West. It isn't. The second is production sharing agreements. Without getting too complicated, production sharing agreements, as I'm sure many of you are aware, is a way of splitting costs and expenses. It's a way of encouraging oil and gas companies to invest significant amounts of money into a country. PSAs, I've got to admit, as a financier, and I've been doing it for enough years, I think they're great for companies. I think they're great for countries. I think they give stability. The key thing with the PSA is cost recoveries need to be clear. They need to capture exploration, infrastructure, and critically financing, because these large projects need large amounts of financing. The other alternative, and this is very much an Asian phenomenon, particularly out of Malaysia, is the monetization of marginal fields. Probably not that applicable for Turkey, but again with risk-sharing contracts, again what is key is stability and a clear monetization. And again, I've got the word stability and predictably underneath there. Lastly, just have an agreed framework and stick to it. And lastly, this is something very much an African phenomenon, particularly in West Africa, possibly so much in East Africa. If there's a sovereign free carry, which basically means that the country is entitled to a share of the equity, make sure it's on an equity basis. That allows the debt to be 100% applied at the project level. It's a really boring technical issue, but it is actually crucial between a project being successful and unsuccessful. What is unhelpful? Again, stable and predictability, lack of, particularly the language, are we expropriating today? One other thing which is kind of odd is if a taxation agreement or a PSA agreement in a country is overly generous, if it's just too favorable, that won't attract investment. That will deter investment. And the reason people will say is, what's the catch? And there's one country, which I can't name, but in sub-Saharan Africa, has a very favorable PSA agreement. And they can't understand why they can't attract oil and gas investment. And the reason is, it is just so favorable, it's suspicious. So actually high taxation is not a problem. Just make it predictable and high. Lastly, the undefined role of the sovereign oil and gas company. And I'll pick on one, which is Sonangol, which is also my client. Sonangol was also the sovereign oil and gas company. It was also the regulator. And guess what happened? No oil and gas company of any sort of, the smaller oil and gas companies just didn't get a C in. Angola quite rightly has separated it. So don't have the sovereign oil and gas company be the regulator. That just doesn't work. And lastly, what is utterly key, and I'm sure everyone in the room believes, lacks environmental standards, poor commitment for local employment, and having a relaxed view of local stakeholders is just inappropriate in this day and age. No oil and gas company, quite frankly, no human being wants to be associated with poor environmental standards and the mistreatment of local workers. I'll rattle on. In terms of international equity, debt and feedback, these are some comments I've got. It's from investors primarily in the US and Europe. The US has suddenly realized there actually is Middle Eastern risk, courtesy of what's happened in Saudi Arabia. The Middle East was seen as a risk-free environment, which is ironic. They now understand there is a penalty for the Middle East. That should work in Turkey's favor. The other issue is this is a very much a Western view. I'm going to be careful how I say it, but often investors saw the country of Africa. They are now aware there is no country of Africa, but there's 54 distinct countries. So as a result, African countries are beginning to differentiate themselves. Nationalization is often the bogeyman, but nationalization is not really the risk. It really isn't the risk. It's poorly defined PSAs and an expensive sovereign cost of carry. No investor is that worried about nationalization. They're worried about PSAs. Country political stability is absolutely critical, and by that I mean social and infrastructure. And lastly, the economic benefits of exploration are always outweighed by bad PR. No matter how good the country, how good the fields are, if there's bad PR, and for that's an environmental standard or mistreatment of local workers, that will deter investment. And no matter how good the project is, you have to have strong environmental standards and strong commitment to local employment. And lastly, in terms of, and this is the last slide, the feedback from investors. And first of all, the fact, I know a number of people may feel that Turkey is challenging to get financed. It's not, by the way, it isn't. You just got to ask the right questions to the right people. First of all, in terms of senior debt, which is the classic way of financing oil and gas, keep it boring. It's senior secured, English or New York law. And the reason English or New York law is important is the fact is there can be arbitration, primarily in the UK or in New York. English and New York law, but you do have local law, which is the security pledge. Mezzanine debt used to be a classic of bankers like myself and one of my colleagues in the room. Mezzanine debt was the bit you used to put in when you couldn't get enough equity and couldn't get enough debt. Mezzanine debt is pretty much dead at the moment and probably will remain so. And lastly, particularly for the independents, there is a requirement to have true equity. And quite frankly, you can never have enough equity. In the case of raising equity, just raise it. Lastly, in terms of the debt providers, there are two types of banks out there, basically, in the oil and gas world. Those who know what they're doing and those who don't have a clue. Those who know what they're doing are reserve-based lending banks. They have a formulaic approach. They have engineers. They lend against future oil and gas, which is still in the ground. The ones who don't have a clue, quite frankly, are the rest. In terms of the reserve-based lending banks, there's about 8 or 9 globally banks which are recommended, and they're gradually withdrawing from the space. Capital constraints, people constraints. They are replaced, and I've got somewhat, by credit funds, and often they're people who've fallen out of a bank into a credit fund. These are US credit funds. They can write big checks. And what we're seeing now is that the oil and gas financing world is changing. And there's a couple of things which are important. This is incredibly interesting if you're a banker, probably less interesting if you're in the industry, and absolutely critical if you're a CEO and a CFO. First of all, debt is becoming more bond-like. That means there's no amortization. The good news is for oil and gas companies, such as my audience, is they don't have to pay off the debt over time. They can just keep the debt flat. The coupons are fixed, no longer based on LIBOR. That gives you boring predictability. And the one requirement is that reserve-based lending banks used to insist upon hedging. that is no longer applicable with the credit funds. Debt pricing as a result has increased, but I would argue so far debt flexibility has improved. So the debt market overall, there's different players, but it's a better market. And in terms of equity, there's a phenomenon, one of my colleagues said it well yesterday, there's a herd effect. Everyone pretty much in the US went into unconventional. As a result, conventional players moved to London and have been very successful. Then non-North American players are also moving to London. So London is actually a beneficiary of a number of public listings. The North American public markets are really, quite frankly, for North American companies, generally those in Texas, and they like unconventional. I've got sustainable question mark. I don't think it is. I think the US equity markets are challenging. I think London is a better market. I'm not saying that because I've got a UK passport. It's just getting more applicants. And lastly, private equity placements are continuing. But private equity needs to have a route to get to market. And lastly, what we are now seeing is the phenomenon of debt and equity players coming together. So we're getting, particularly for some of my more challenging frontier market deals in Africa, I've got debt players who have equity upside or equity players with debt protection. So we're now seeing one source of funding. But the overall message is hopefully, very bullish. There is money out there. There is money for frontier markets. If a deal is well structured and if it's well priced, it will get financed. It will just come from new sources. And that won't be the banks, but probably the credit funds. Hopefully that was quick enough.
Thank you. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Andrew, for you really highlighted good points. We will just get in detail and there just ask some additional questions about it. But as we are focusing on Turkey, so now we have 3 speakers that have directly related to Turkish industry, Turkish upstream industry. And I also would like to ask you with distinct order, just short introductory thoughts. So what also would you like to add just to make a kind of a beginning in our discussion? So let's start with Chris, please.
Sure. Thanks very much, Serkan, and thank you very much for allowing me to speak at this forum. Çok teşekkürler. Still learning my Turkish. The people who have come to this forum more often, they will ask themselves, where is Fatih Alpay, the colorful and charismatic chairman of Arar? He told me that he's sniffing out more exploration opportunities, so he's out in the field. And also, given my background, I may have a few more things to say about international investment. So, therefore, it's me. My background is, my whole life has been in the energy industry, largely related to company valuations, merger acquisitions, helping banks and private equity companies. I've also spent some time investing in technology itself. So I've got a broad background to bring to the table, and for the last 2 years I've had the pleasure to help Fatih Bey and Tayfun Bey here to manage Arar, which is a very exciting operating company in Turkey. For those people who don't know Arar, and for the non-Turkish speaker, Arar means search for, so explore. Really, we are an exploration company that has, over the years, also moved in production. We are a fully integrated oil and gas company. We have 14 licenses, exploration licenses, and 4 production licenses. We've got about 2,500 barrels of oil production at the moment. We have our own seismic team, we have our own seismic processing, we have our own drilling capability, our own operating capability. And I'll come later to that because we think that we need that at the moment in order to best operate our assets. That should not necessarily be necessary. And as such, we're still a small oil company, but we're a top 5, top 6 player in Turkey. So it's all the perspective, really, that you want to take. When I personally spread my time between London and Ankara, which is becoming a bit of a second home to me. But when I'm in London, I see the global messages that are interfering with the oil and gas industry. And I don't need Greta Thunberg to be mad at me as an oil and gas polluter. My own children are mad at me for being an oil and gas polluter. And there is this climate change. It's moving. It's very much being politicized, and it's making it very tough for an oil and gas company to act in this environment. However, I think that the global oil and gas community and the industry has a crucial role to play in actually tackling the climate change. So the other global issues that are coming up, and you see it in the financing, Andrew mentioned it briefly, there's the investment funds, they all start to mention ESG, environmental, social, and governance issues. So they will not give you their money anymore unless you satisfy their guidelines and criteria for these funds, because these funds have to go out to the world as well and raise money under a changing political environment. At the same time, in the global scene, we see the drive for cost efficiency, and the whole digital world is playing a big part in that. The North Sea, Gulf of Mexico, Asia Pacific, there's a lot of late life fields in there which require a specific address. And one of the biggest issues that we have in the industry, I find, and we have it here as well, is attracting the right talent. And we're becoming an industry of old grey men, and we need to address that. Because I truly believe that there's a lot more for the oil and gas upstream world in the coming years. So when we look at the Turkish situation, and we've just had the speech from the Deputy Minister yesterday of the Minister, the situation is somewhat reflected, the global situation is very much reflected in the Turkish policy and in the Turkish industry. So what I picked up is that we need to overcome the supply-demand gap that we have in terms of oil and gas supplies in the country. We need to do more about renewables, and we need to be more efficient with our energy. But also, and again it was confirmed today, Turkey is a country that is still very much underexplored. We very much believe that as well as an exploration company, that the wells that have been drilled and the seismic that's been shot has largely been done in either the Thrace Basin or in the southeast of the country. And Arar, for instance, we have licenses in Hatay area, we have licenses in Konya area, and so complete different regions of Turkey, where we believe, and we've got some gas discoveries there, so we believe there is good potential in other parts of Turkey, and they require more attention. And we don't really want to be alone in that exploration. But overall, I think E&P, as a result of all these factors, E&P in Turkey will remain a very important part of the mix. And if we translate that down to what that means for a small local oil company, and it's also privately owned, I know that the owner of the company wants this to be a legacy business. So he wants this company to be around many generations from now. And that means that we need to think beyond petroleum. So we need to think about strategies in that direction. Of course, we need to operate responsible as well, and that's of course what we do. And we're always looking at areas to reduce, for instance, diesel usage in our operations, and looking at other areas to reduce CO2 where we can. Arama is a bit unique because it's 100% Turkish. I'm the only yabancı in Arama. And so our assets are in Turkey, our ownership is in Turkey, all the landing banks are Turkish, our production is sold into Turkey. So we're a 100% Turkish company, and it provides some unique advantages and also disadvantages. At the moment, we're a stable, successful company, but that has not always been like that. And in fact, it has been quite a struggle for a small operating company to get where it is today. And part of that, a big part of that, was actually due to the difficulty in getting finance. I'm not saying it wasn't available, as you said, but it was difficult to get our hands on finance. And if I look at how has occurred in the lending market. If we go to big institutional investors, lenders, they're not interested in small amounts of lending capital. So if you ask for 10 million or 20 million, it's too difficult for them. They're not interested in that. If you go to the small companies, they start to come up with all kinds of terms, and the costs go up very high, and it becomes very unattractive to actually take that debt. It could become a massive liability for you taking on that kind of debt. So we did not do that. And so we chose the third route and working with Turkish banks. But the Turkish banks, sorry to say, they don't really understand the E&P industry well enough yet. So there's a massive learning to be done there. It took us many years and lots of conversations with a broad sector of the banks before we finally were able to get some quite small loans done. And most of those loans were based on our revenue rather than on our assets. So if we, and there are products out there in the Western world, reserve-based lending being one of them, that the Turkish banks are not comfortable with yet. And so I think there's a bit of education and a lot of communication required to improve that. On the equity markets, we've been trying that about 10 years ago quite unsuccessfully in the London public market. And I think the lesson that we took from that is that you have to be very aware as a small local entrepreneurial company that the world that you get yourself into if you go into that shark pit of the London, which is the London equity market. But some of our colleague operating companies have been quite successful in getting private equity finance, Aladdin being one of them. But overall, I think, and I've also worked at this from the other side, as a doing due diligence on Turkish companies on behalf of Western lenders or equity investors, and it's clear that Turkish companies are not really set up to provide the data and the information in the format and the time frames and the process that makes Western investors comfortable. I think again, it's just a matter of education and getting these things in order. It's not a difficult thing to do. So where does that leave us now as an oil company? Fortunately, we're self-sufficient. We would like to accelerate our development and appraisal program, and we're looking at foreign investment and at possibly foreign strategic partners to do that. And hopefully, early next year, we'll start doing a farm-out process where we hope to attract some foreign investment in our company. But if I look at how the external environment, let's call it that, could help us a bit more as a company in Turkey, I think it's 5 things. It's a license application process, the service industry here locally, technology, finance, and skills and talent. And it's not necessarily in that order. And a number of simple things I think we can do. I already mentioned the more open communication and more elaborate communication with the finance industry here locally. At the same time, Turkey always says we're striding the area between the West and the East. Open the gates. I think increasing the awareness to the outside world that Turkey is open for business. I think that will. I've seen many other countries do this quite successfully in a London forum or in other investment forums, and it's quite easy to do. There's open doors there for you, and we have nothing to be afraid of. Turkey has a fantastic environment. Turkey has the one thing I didn't agree with you on, Andrew, is I think the fiscal structure in Turkey is fantastic. But it's one of the best worldwide. It's 12.5% royalty and 20% corporate tax. You can't get much better globally. And I've seen a lot of different fiscal structures. I wouldn't get suspicious of it, but you have to explain why it's there. I think it's more educating rather than remaining suspicious. But apart from that, we've got a very stable law in this country. The whole regulatory process, as well as the implementation thereof, is very well organized. And so on top of that, the oil industry is a very transparent industry, and if you compare that to some of the countries surrounding Turkey, you know, we're in a very good, stable position there. So we have a lot to shout about as Turkey, and I think we should do that in an international forum. So what can be done more? I think one of the things that I think we can do more is allow both local and international entrepreneurs to start up companies in this country. Give them easier access to licenses, allow them incentivization or structures to allow them to capitalize in a more transparent and easy way, and as a government, put a bit less focus of the burden on TPAO, who's carrying a lot of the weight at the moment in carrying the flag for the exploration and production increases in Turkey. I truly believe that if you increase the amount of operating companies, that the service companies and the technology will follow. At the moment, I mentioned earlier, we have a lot of the services in-house because it's very difficult for us to get them. And if you then hire Weatherford or Schlumberger, they'll have to get their equipment from Romania or other places outside Turkey. If we have a more competitive and more activity in this country, I think the service companies will follow, and they'll set up their base and their equipment here again. And with that, the latest technology will follow as well, and we'll have all the know-how transfer, etc., coming from that. I already mentioned the license application process. I think if we do that a bit more on technical merit, so that you give data to everyone, all the applicants who are interested in that, and then you decide on giving the license to the best technical and funded application. I think that would be a good change to do. And also we need to celebrate our successes. I think, just without stealing Sean's words here, but I think what Valour has done is fantastic. It's a small company who's come to Turkey, and they've been able to attract massive operating company into this country. We need more of that. I've got a few more points, but I'll stick it to that just for time. Thanks.
Can we just go to detail of your speech in the Q&A part? Just let's move on with the Q&A part after this, because I also would like to get some introductory ideas from other speakers, and then let's move to Q&As.
I want to mention. I think one of the things that I've seen in a global context, beyond the fiscal regime that is already quite positive here, is I think what we could do more of is incentivize, have a very specific focus incentivizations for foreign companies to come and explore here. As an example, in Norway, which you showed has massive investment now in development phase, Norway about 10 years ago introduced a law to give massive tax credits to exploration activity, and beyond that, they agreed with their local banks that operating companies, exploration companies, could borrow money against those tax credits. So really on day one, you only had to pay 20, 30 cents in the dollar for all your exploration monies, which is a massive increase led to a massive increase in exploration activity, mostly of smaller companies who don't have these big balance sheets. And that then followed with the big companies coming in and funding all these big developments, like the Johan Sverdrup, which has come on stream earlier this month, which is great for Norway. As another example, Lebanon is hugely covered by 3D seismic, which, with some European aid, is shot by mostly Western companies who did it very cheap. That data has been made available to all the license holders or application participants in the rounds there, and it's been obviously very successful. So I think there's these kind of things that you can do to attract the bigger oil companies particularly. I think there's a bit more flexibility at the borders, particularly to get talent in, expats, community get in. I know Turkish people love football, And you know, there's some very good Turkish footballers, mostly playing abroad. Still, Turkey has a very good national football team as a result of that. But also the best football teams in Turkey, have a lot of international football players. And I think something similar we can do with the oil industry, where we can attract the best internationally to come to this country and put together with the know-how transfer that brings. I think that will really improve the whole situation here. And something similar can be done with technology, access to not just IT but equipment. Either allow us to bring it here, or even better, to produce it here, if it then, of course, still can meet up with the very high quality requirements that the industry has. We don't want our equipment to fall over within the field. So those were the points I wanted to make.
Yeah,
thanks.
thank you. It was really great snapshot. Thank you so much for Chris. Like, actually, you already mentioned like the success that Valeria already achieved. So before coming that, because both Andrew and Chris mentioned about the importance of a stable fiscal regime and how policies are like forcing this, and how attractive even a small operator, like a mid-sized operator from other side of the world, to come and operate here. So although Murat is also working another operator, but now he's talking on behalf of Platform, and we know that Platform is really working very hard to support the governmental institutions, governmental bodies, to improve the regulations and legal part of the upstream industry to work to improve better. And we know that the new petroleum law is in effect for the last 5 years. And so both also part of Platform, also like a board part of a Turkish operator. So how do you think that petroleum law really meet the expectations that like these international debt parts, international finance, or oil operators operating in country, did it meet the expectations? And when we look at the past for the first 5 years, so are we in a better position? Are we in the same point? So what do you think?
Her şeyden önce bu kadar yoğun İngilizceden sonra ben bir Türkçe konuşmayı tercih ediyorum açıkçası.
Feel free.
Sayın Bakanımıza, tüm katılımcılara, organizasyonu yapan herkese teşekkürlerimizi sunarız. Bu zirvenin içine upstream kavramının da davet edilmiş olması bizim için mutluluk verici. Sayın Bakanımızın belirttiği gibi ilgi belki istediğimiz düzeyde olmayabilir ama biz zaten bu ülkede emekliye yürümeye çalışan bir sektör olduğumuz için buna da çok alışığız. O yüzden de pes etmek yok, yılmak yok, yolumuza devam ediyoruz. Şunu rahatlıkla söylemek isterim. Bugün Platform Derneği'ni temsilen yönetim kurulu üyesi olarak buradayım. Aynı zamanda da Arama ve Üretim Grup Başkanıyım. Aynı zamanda da Türkiye'de özel sektör anlamında en fazla petrol üretimini yapan Perenco firmasının da yöneticisiyim. Profesyonel olarak 23 yıldır burada çalışıyorum. Genelde katılımcıların tersine teknik bir altyapıdan gelmiyorum. Daha işin işletme, iktisat, ekonomi, finansman boyutu, kanun boyutuyla ilgileniyorum. Platformda da o doğrultuda bir çizgi sürdürmeye çalışıyoruz. Çünkü gerçekten teknik anlamda bu işin içine girildiği zaman odaklanma ve konuyu anlamaktan çok uzak bir perspektife gidebiliyor. Herkesin de konuya çok hakim olmadığından yola çıkarsak işimiz iyice zorlaşıyor. Ben birazcık daha sorunuza gelmeden önce o kanun, 2013 kanununu çıkarmadan önce özellikle mecliste, komisyonlarda, sektörün tüm oyuncuları olarak Sayın Bakanlığın bünyesinde yaptığımız bir dizi konuşma, tartışma, detay çalışma oldu. Matematikleri ortaya koymaya çalıştık. Fakat ne yaparsak yapalım öyle bir noktaya geliyoruz ki bu petrol şirketleri, bu yabancılar, bu yerliler, bu üreticiler petrolü buldular, kuyudan çıkarmadılar. Petrolü buldular, üstünü örttüler. Biz bu kara propagandanın önüne bilimle, ilimle, laf anlatarak, lafla, sözle geçemedik. Bu kırılma anını da nasıl yakalayacağız ayrı bir tartışma konusu ama mücadelemize devam ediyoruz. Platformda burada önemli bir görev üstleniyor. Biz de o doğrultuda yerli yabancı tüm bu %8'lik ihtiyacı karşılama oranına hizmet edecek performansı her türlü zorluğa rağmen hayata geçirmeye çalışıyoruz. 2013 yılında kanun devreye girdikten sonra aslında ta 60'lı yıllardan gelen çok az değişime uğramış bir kanunun güncellenmesi, revize edilmesi, çağımıza adapte edilmesi ve bir diğer taraftan da sektörü hafif ayaklandırması, harekete geçirmesi amaçlanmıştı. Gerçekten de çok olumlu diyeceğimiz, sektörde kangren olmuş sorunlar diyeceğimiz küçük küçük bir sürü hususu da çözdü. Fakat bunları çözerken 2015 yılında o uluslararası petrol krizinin tam ortasında yakalandık. Yönetmeliklerimizi filan güncellemiş, hayata geçirmişken bu uluslararası kriz tüm dünyada yangında ama Türkiye'de de faaliyetler açısından ciddi bir, Sayın Bakanımız rakamları verdi, ciddi bir düşüş eğilimi yarattı. Haliyle aslında bu yıllar sonra elde etmeyi başardığımız kanun tam koşma, yürümeye çalışırken birden bir sekteye uğradı. Fakat kanunun tabii ortaya koyduğu, getirdiği yenilikleri de küçümseyemeyiz. Örneğin herkesin bir iş programı doğrultusunda bir yatırım sunması, o yatırım karşılığında da bir teminat garantisinin devlet tarafından alınıyor olması gerçekten işi yapmak isteyen firmaların artık yarışmacı olmasını sağladı. Yani ben bir ruhsatı alayım, elimde bulunsun, bir yabancı biri gelir, bir yerli biri gelir, bir ortak bulurum kavramının önüne geçmeyi başardık. Birçok bürokratik engelle karşılaşıyorduk. Bunları ortadan kaldırmaya çalışıp ciddi yaklaşımlar oldu. Fakat bu konuda ciddi bir mesafe kaydettiğimizi söyleyemeyiz. Özellikle Sayın Bakanlığın, Enerji Bakanlığımızın dışına çıktığımız dakika konunun biraz önce anlattığım sebeplerden dolayı çok tartışma içinde barındırdığı için ve kurumların ve insanların bu kavrama bizlerin hakimin olduğu kadar yakın olmadığı için ciddi sorunlarla karşılaştık. Başka bir kuruma gittiğimiz dakika olay anında bitiyor. Ne yaparsak yapalım, hangi kaldıraç etkisini kullanmaya çalışalım, bu bürokratik engellemeleri her türlü iyi niyete rağmen aşmak mümkün olmuyor. Fakat geldiğimiz diğer bir husus da tüm katılımcılar, konuşmacılar şu ana kadar belirtti. Gerçekten ülkemizde ortaya konan mali rejim yatırımcıyı yerli olsun, yabancı olsun ürkütecek bir yapıya sahip değil. Gerçekten dost. Diğer ülke örnekleriyle kıyasladığımızda gerçekten öne çıkıyor. Fakat ona rağmen arzu ettiğimiz, hayal ettiğimiz yatırımı ülkeye çekme konusunda başarılı olamıyoruz. Buradaki en temel faktörlerden biri de şu. Bu sektörün arama, geliştirme, üretme gibi aşamaları var. Bunları hepimiz exploration, development, production bildiğimiz kavramlar. Bizim ülkedeki ağırlıklı konsantrasyonumuz büyük arama projesi, büyük yatırım, yabancı yatırım. Bunların bir parça bu %8'i karşılamaya çalışan mevcut portföyü ve mevcut yatırımcıları ya da mevcut faaliyetleri gölgelediğini düşünüyoruz. Tabii ki devletimizin milli kuruluş, TPA ile birlikte büyük projelere, büyük arama faaliyetlerine odaklanmasının çok kıymetli olduğunu düşünüyoruz. Ama diğer taraftan da elimizde bulunan petrol sahalarının, rezervlerin gerçekten etkin kullanılıp kullanılmadığı, oradaki mevcut rezervin gün yüzüne çıkıp çıkmadığının, yarını beklemeden bugün niye yapmadığımızın sorgulanması gerektiği inancındayım. Özel sektörün bu manada esnekliği ve kabiliyeti birazcık daha fazla. Gerçekten özel sektör yolu açarak giderken herhangi bir bulguya rastlandığı dakika zaten o ekonominin şartları ve global yatırım devreye giriyor ve o yatırımcı büyük bir devle buluşma şansına sahip olabiliyor. Örnekler verildi biraz önce. Bunlar kıymetli, küçük de gözükse önemli gelişmeler. Bu kanunun 2015 kriziyle birlikte amacından biraz uzakta kalması ümidimizi asla yitirmemize sebep olmuyor. İnancımız devam. Bugün bir varil petrolü üretmemenin ülkemize 87-89 dolar gibi bugünün fiyatlarıyla bir maliyeti var. Bu yurt dışından aldığımız petrolün ithalat değeri Artı bir varili ülkede üretmemekten kaynaklı karşılaştığımız devlet hissesi, kurumlar vergisi ve benzeri vergilerden ortaya çıkan kayıp. Böyle bir lüksümüz olduğu inancında değiliz. Günlük 40 bin, 50 bin varillik üretimi 51 bin yapmak, 55 bin varil yapmak için daha beklememiz gereken bir durum yok. Bu manada gerek dernek olarak, dernek gerçekten de sektördeki birçok oyuncuyu içinde barındırıyor. Oldukça profesyonellerden oluşuyor ve Enerji Bakanlığımızla, Maden ve Petrol İşleri Genel Müdürlüğümüzle de uyum içinde çalışıyor. Geleceğe küçük revizyonlarla ve bir takım uluslararası ilgiyi artırabilecek düzenlemelerle ilerlemeye çalışırsak ve elimizdeki mevcutların değerinin altını çizmemiz gerektiğini de hatırlarsak, ülkemiz için ve sektör için ve uluslararası yatırımcı açısından da ideal bir şey yapmış olacağımızı düşünüyorum. Şimdilik sözlerimi burada sonlandırmak istiyorum.
Sure. So thank you so much. Thank you very much, Murat. So, what we all understand is, okay, upstream investment is already a high risk business. It's very hard to attract operators, foreign investment to come and operate, especially such countries like Turkey, with underexploration, limited resources, limited proven success. But I think in this context, in this frame, I really value Valora's existence in Turkey, because for me, because if we think in this, like in realistically for the last few years, it's the only greenfield direct investment as far as I know. And I think the bigger success is you didn't just come alone, you brought Statoil together with you, which is also, I think, to me, it's very exciting that like a really major operator is interested in Turkey. So we really would like to hear the story behind how this interest with Turkey started and how it evolved. At the end, you came just be partner with Statoil.
Yes, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak with you here today. And thank you to the Vice Minister for joining us here for this session this afternoon. I'll give a little bit of background on Valoura because it really will touch on a lot of the important aspects for foreign investment and kind of what we bring to the story. And I know, having worked in a number of different countries, that the ministries, the country would always like to see the CEO of Shell and Exxon and that sitting up here. That's a desire to get these big companies in. But I'll really talk a little bit too about what do we as a relatively small company, what do we bring to foreign investment in Turkey, because it comes in a few different forms. So back in 2000, Valoura was founded back in 2010, and at that time the company had support from investors. It had money to go and work internationally. We're a Canadian company, but the desire was to work internationally. And they looked at the South America, looked at different areas around the Mediterranean, and the opportunities were seen here in Turkey. And that's where Valoura invested its money, was in Turkey. And we'll talk maybe a little bit more about the details of why we came to that. But so we came into Turkey. We only work within Turkey, even though we're a Canadian company. We actually own Thrice Basin natural gas. So we're producing gas in the Thrace Basin, and it is a relatively small amount, but for us it's quite significant. And for the 75 people we employ, and for the businesses that use our gas, it's obviously very important. And that's a very good story for us as a small company. The other aspect that's been in the news a lot more recently is we've had quite a significant unconventional high-pressure gas discovery very deep in the Thrace Basin. And this was recognized by our geologists. So we had Canadian geologists working with very experienced Turkish geologists, and the two of them working together were able to recognize features in the geology that suggested this unconventional play. But we knew with that type of play, we did not have the capital to go after it. And therefore we had to convince a major player like Equinor to then come invest in parallel with us, to come in and look at this play technically, but also to invest in Turkey. And that's what we've done now. We've drilled 3 wells with Equinor, 2 of them down to almost 5,000 meters, and we have found a lot of very high pressure gas. And kind of the numbers that are out there from our external reserve auditor is the net gas to Valoura risked is about 150 billion cubic meters. That's a very exciting number. That's not just an exciting number for me or for our company. That's a very exciting number for Turkey. But I must caution, it's still a risk number. We're in the appraisal phase. We're in the phase where we need that foreign investment to really de-risk this and prove that it's there. So we're working very hard with our partner Equinor. We're advancing that play. We've got about 6 to 8 months of continual testing that we're working on now, which we believe should help us understand this play and what are the next steps, and really to demonstrate that it can be commercial. So it is a very exciting time, but it is not just that we need to bring our own company and our money in there, it's that we also needed to attract that money from Equinor.
Yeah, thank you, Sean.
So,
Okay, sure.
oh
Sorry,
no, I'm
sorry.
going to keep going.
On,
I just
please,
needed
please,
to
please, move on.
When we talk about big companies and little companies, I'll just say, as a small oil and gas company, some of the key things to remember is that we do a lot of work to try and identify geologically these plays that can be bigger and better. Once we do that work, we then go on the road, and at times, like to bring in Equinor, that took about 2 years of travel, meeting different companies to convince them to come in. But that's our job. We have a lot of small companies out there who are doing a lot of very good technical work to then try and bring that investment in. And that's a key part of the business. The second point as a small company that I always find interesting is I'm the CEO of a small company, and my job is to fly around the world meeting with investors in London, in New York, in Toronto, in Asia, to explain to them what a good place Turkey is to invest. Now, I know the money is coming into my company for that investment, but that is the first question that really comes up. Once they meet you and they meet your company, it's tell me about Turkey as an investment climate. So we recognize that Turkey is out there talking about what a good place Turkey is to invest, why it's such a good place to invest. But we as small companies are out there all the time too, talking about this. We're really your front line out there talking about investment in Turkey. And a last point I'll just make is, even though we're relatively a small company where, a few years ago we were only under $50 million valuation, we've now been in Turkey for about 8 years, and even though there was low prices and low activity, we with our partners have spent more than $500 million US. And that's for a small company, that expenditure there, then that expenditure is yielding jobs, that expenditure is yielding work for contractors and further jobs, and in the end yields gas that can benefit Turkey as a whole. So, while we can be quite small players, there are some key aspects that we kind of bring to the story of foreign investment, and we're working very hard to bring that money into Turkey.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So, again, I would like to ask Andrew, so based on what you heard, so obviously what we understand, Turkey is, like fiscal-wise, it's attractive, but on the other hand, because of under-exploration and like business-wise, or some kind of bureaucratic stuff, it's kind of a tough environment maybe for greenfield developments or maybe attractive, like big investment. But just if you need to make a very quick, short SWOT analysis for the Turkish upstream investment, so how would you see this, or what would you kind of suggest to do more, like having some more extra steps in
So
there?
I've had the pleasure of doing similar panels in other countries, and my message is very simple. It's the fact is, you're in competition with other countries.
Yeah.
And I was in Tanzania a few weeks ago, and the same message. Tanzania is in competition with Kenya, is in competition with Turkey. So first of all, there is a small pool of funding available. You're in competition with other countries, so therefore you have to differentiate yourself. You can't change the resource of the country, you just can't. But what you can change is, and always work on, is fiscal stability. And as I said, the fact is, if there's 2 words I can leave, it's predictability and stability. That is key.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. And sorry?
Can I answer that?
Sure, yeah.
No, because what I think is Turkey has both of those.
Yeah.
It's been very stable. They're good fiscal terms, they're good government terms. I think in Turkey's case, it's more getting the message out there. Let the people know that it's there. And you say correctly, the resource base we can't change. You know, we're an exploration company. We hope that there's a lot more there, but we're not certain. There's a lot of risk there. But let's reduce that risk for the foreign investors as well. So we can provide information to foreign investors. We can open up, give data, just anything to ease it up. Because as Andrew correctly says, the Turkish investment is competing with other countries' investment.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. So, Murat, I would like to ask you, so if we are competing with other countries in there, so what we can only do is just changing fiscal systems or regulations and law. So, but every single regulation change, every single law change is a consequence. So how do you think we can maybe like pre-calculate the consequence of regulations, or just make sure that things are getting better at least in the future with changes?
Şimdi herkes mümkün olduğunca ülkesine, şirketine ya da içinde bulunduğu yatırım iklimine göre daha fazla pay alma, uluslararası yatırım zincirinden daha çok kıymet elde edinebilme mücadelesi veriyor. Benim çalıştığım kurum bile Türkiye haricinde dünyada 15 tane ülkede faaliyet gösteriyor ve ülkeler projeleri bütçelendirebilmek adına kendi içlerinde rekabet ediyorlar. Her firma, her sektör, her organizasyon, yerli yabancı fark etmez, tüm projelerini belli bir ekonomiye, belli bir matematiğe dayandırıyor. NPV'ler yarışıyor ve burada hangisi öne çıkarsa bütçeler oraya gelmek için mücadele ediyor. İşte bu dakikada bizim Türkiye olarak jeolojik anlamda riskli bir ülke olduğumuzdan yola çıkarsak bir takım kaldıraçlara ihtiyacımız olduğu inancını taşıyorum. Ve bunun da bizim sektörü hareketlendirebilecek bir potansiyeli barındırdığını düşünüyorum. Burada amaç vergi teşviği, buna benzer bir kavrama sığınmak değil. Zaten sektör kendi mevcut yoluna, uluslararası krizleriyle, bu düşük performansıyla, az üretebilme kapasitesiyle, suyla mücadele etmesiyle, kuyuların 40-50 varil günlük üretimleriyle zaten iyi kötü yolunda yürüyor. Burada önemli olan arama dediğimiz, geliştirme dediğimiz, üretim dediğimiz halkanın sektörel anlamda sadece Enerji Bakanlığı'nın bünyesinde değil, hem Maliye Bakanlığı'nca hem de diğer paydaşlarla, diğer ilgili kurumlarla iyi algılanması, bu sektörün doğasının, özelliklerinin benimsenebilmesi, gelecek açısından da kıymet teşkil ediyor. Petform çatısı altında Mayıs 2019'da Diyarbakır'da bir scout toplantısı tertip ettik. Sektör olarak ilk defa Diyarbakır'da sahada bu işi yaptık ki yaptığımız olayın gerçekten bir emek olduğunu, salonların, binaların, masaların dışında, dağın başında, arazinin ortasında bu faaliyetin sürdürüldüğünü hem gösterebilmek hem de anlatabilmek için kıymet arz etti. Burada sektörün tüm oyuncuları kendi sorunlarını, sıkıntılarını ortaya koydu. Ve biz bu sıkıntıları Sayın Maden ve Petrol İşleri Genel Müdürlüğü ile paylaştık. Ve ondan sonra da paylaşmakla kalmadık. Uzunca bir toplantı silsilesi içinde de teker teker çözüm önerilerimizi matematikleriyle, arkasındaki desteklerle daha önce hiç olmamış şekilde ortaya koymaya çalıştık. Burada illa mevcut bir sistemin içinden devletten bir pay almak, bir teşvik almak gibi değil, sektörü nasıl ayakta tutarız, nasıl büyütürüz, nasıl geliştiririz konsantrasyonu içinde yapmaya çalıştık. Bu sürecimiz devam ediyor. Maden ve Petrol İşleri Genel Müdürlüğü'ndeki süreç tamamlandıktan sonra da ortaya çıkan raporumuz ilgililer tarafından Sayın Bakanlığımıza sunulacak. Sayın Bakanımızın dikkatine iletilecek. Bunun gerçekten bizim sıkıntılarımızı ortaya koyacağını ve geleceğe yönelik de bir hareketlenmeyi, bir çözüm getireceği inancını düşünüyoruz. Gelen yatırımcının Türkiye'deki mevcut adalet sisteminden, vergi sisteminden, şundan bundan fazla dert yanabileceği bir yan yok. Çünkü bu işi yapan firmalar zaten ormanın ortasında, Afrika'nın alakasız yerinde, çölünde Şurada burada. Yani bu olayın macerası bu zaten. Yani bu biliniyor. Bizim ülkemiz o manada diğerleriyle kıyasladığımızda aslında bir cennet. Burada karşılaştığımız sorunların temelinde sektörün gerçeklerinin bizim devlet işleyişimizin içinde tam yerini bulamaması, diğer kurumlar arasındaki koordinasyonla ortaya çıkan enerji ve zaman kaybı. Çünkü bir tarafta projeye ilişkin bir taahhütte bulunuyorsunuz, diğer tarafta başka bir kurumdan izin alıp o sismik datayı toplamak için araziye giremiyorsunuz. Yani bu birbiriyle çelişen bir durum. Haliyle bunlar çok güzel, somut bir şekilde ortaya konmaya çalışıldı. Rakipler arasında, yarışmacılar arasında da bir adalet mekanizmasının, bir denge mekanizmasının olması gerektiği inancındayız. Tabii ki devletin tercih hakkı, bizim bilmediğimiz değerlendirmeler ve ortaya koyacağı bir perspektif olacaktır. Ama diğer tarafta da gerek milli kuruluş olsun, diğer özel sektör oyuncuları olsun, belli bir terazide dengeli tartılmak gerektiği düşüncesindeyiz. Özel sektörün üretim kabiliyeti olduğu müddetçe ruhsatlarını devam ettirmesi gerektiği inancındayız. Tüm bunların ortaya çıkması şu anda çok olası gözüküyor. Çünkü genel müdürlükte ve Sayın Bakanlık'ta en üstten en alt kademeye kadar bu enerji, bu konsantrasyonun olduğuna biz şahidiz. Maden ve Petrol İşleri Genel Müdürlüklerinin birleştirildiğinde biraz açıkçası ürktük. Çünkü inanılmaz büyük bir yapının içine işte 40-50 toplamlı bir firma giriyordu. Ama gördük ki o endişeye mal verecek bir durum olmadı. Hatta çoğu husus hızlandı. Sayın Bakanımızın konuşmasında belirttiği bu dijitalleşme ve hızlanma performans kriterleri gerçekten günlük hayatta bizim karşımıza yansıyan kavramlar. Fakat aynı başarı diğer kuruluşlarla olan koordinasyon kısmında maalesef çok aktif değil. O da söylememiz gereken bir gerçek ama umutla bakıyoruz. Bunları yaptığımız dakika daha da gelişebileceğimize, bir varili bugün üretme konsantrasyonunu ortaya koyabileceğimize inanıyoruz. Şikayet etmek yerine önümüze bakma, bunları yaparken de uluslararası yatırımcının bizleri gözlemlediğinin de altını çizmek istiyorum. Ülkedeki herhangi bir küçük yatırımcının ya da herhangi bir yatırımcının bir buluşu muhakkak uluslararası platformda karşılığını ve ilgisini buluyor. Firmaların bu esnekliği var. Bu dünyanın her yerinde de böyle ilerliyor.
Thank you so much. So we are getting closer to our time, and before asking the audience if there are any questions, so I would like to direct one more question to both of you, Sean and Chris. And I would like to Sean to answer first, and then Chris. And so obviously we see that Turkish upstream industry has like some favorable conditions, tough but still like promising opportunities. But it seems that the main problem is that we cannot direct the message to the majors or major investors much more directly or maybe like much more efficiently. So in this problem, so how can we use like small, mid-sized operators operating in Turkey to help us to promote this, help us to carry this message? Because you already have a successful, like a proven success in this, that you already carried this message. So what else can, I don't want to limit just with government, I just want to limit just government bodies, like as a whole. What can Turkey do to support or to use these small and mid-sized operators to direct this message to promote upstream industry of Turkey?
Yes. So when companies are looking at to do a new country entry, it's really a balance of the financial reward that you can get, but also the technical opportunity that can exist there. And obviously, the bigger the company, the larger the opportunity that they're looking for. And that's the reason why historically what Turkey has seen is a lot of the major companies come in, they do an activity because they see the Black Sea could yield large deep water discoveries. If they don't have the success, they tend to move out. They go into the southeast to the Dadaş Shale, drill some unconventional wells. It's a bit questionable and they'll retract. So as I kind of noticed, this success we had was identifying a large opportunity that we were then able to explain to the technical people of a major. Those are going to change all the time because our technical knowledge changes and that opportunity suite changes. The other one is then more on the financial side, and Turkey has gone a long way. Turkey's fiscal terms are excellent. Turkey has shown the stability of those fiscal terms, and that's very positive. The other aspect is commodity pricing. Now, we're a gas producer, and when I do go around and talk to investors around the world, when you tell them, well, the government sets the gas price and they define it in the local currency, that's a red flag to people. But you have to take the time to actually explain to them what the government has been doing here, because we've been here producing gas for almost 10 years now, and we see that the actions of the government have been correct in their pricing, and in fact, the move towards a more liberal, true market price for the gas is very positive. So, but it takes a lot of time to explain that to people. In first instance, when you say the government sets a price and it's denominated in Turkish lira, you know, the conversation's almost over. But it's about getting the facts out there as to how the price is set and what you get for your gas here in Turkey. It's a very important message. So it's really conveying those messages there. I think the other aspect that we see is we believe that working with the regulator and the ministry here is very positive. That has worked extremely well for us, and we appreciate their support all the time. What we have seen a little more challenging now that we're, may have to address is that as more of the other institutions get involved, we have a challenge there to get the approvals we need or to explain to them what's required. So whether it's agriculture, environment, forestry. And I'm not saying that we don't agree with that. The whole world is increasing the environmental challenges, and we have no problem with doing more work on that. But we need to know there is a process there that will actually yield the approvals we need. Whereas a few years ago, it would take us 2 months to get a well site permit. A couple of years ago, that increased to about 6 months because of agriculture. And we have a few permits out there now that are about 11 months we're still kind of waiting on. So we support the changes, working with these groups. And we also see that we can do this together with the ministry, with the regulator. We can work together to make sure we educate these groups on issues like fracking. What is it really? Is it really a problem in an agricultural area? Because there's a lot of negative stories out there, but we need to work from facts. So I think by working together, communicating together, we can all improve this situation.
So, thank you. Chris?
I think one of the things that's being shown here as well is the process side of things, is the fact that Sean is going out on behalf of Turkey in a way, talking about his company, yes, and Sean is the CEO of a public company. He has to do this, unfortunately. He's probably spends most time, more than he wants to, talking to investors and to a large extent responding to what they tell him. I'm the CEO of a private company. I don't have that issue, but I still also need to spread the message and see if parties are interested in investing in us, particularly if we want to grow beyond our own means, which is what we currently do. Even then, I think both Sean and I are in a somewhat unique position, is that we happen to spend a lot of our time in the financial centers of the world. So we're there, and I don't think that, particularly if you want to get more local companies to exist, they need to be able to send their CEOs to those same markets and spread this word that it's a positive message that we can give, and if you can give that positive message, money will be there. This is what Andrew was telling us. So I think it's more of a process thing, and then part of that then, of course, then becomes the message. One of the things that Sean mentioned is gas prices. Let us be able to explain that, because gas prices are pretty good in Turkey. We have, one of the biggest issues as a small company is cash flow. Cash is king for us. And one of the things that we need for that is not just, well, of course, we're dependent on the oil prices. That's every company is. We look into hedging for that. On top of that, because we're a pure Turkish company, all our costs are in Turkish lira based. So we have an oil price revenue and a TL-based cost base. So we've got a foreign exchange risk exposure as well that we need to look at. And then on top of that, there's risks that we have not in control at all, which is around the delivery of our oil. So sure, that could be mechanical issues at the wellhead, but what we've also seen is that some of our we had recently transportation issues, which make an immediate impact to our monthly cash flow and therefore the amount of money that we can invest or even pay our staff. So these are not messages that you want to be having to explain to possible investors if you want to seek investment. These are very avoidable situations as well.
Yeah. So, thank you so much. Dinleyicilerden sorusu olan var mı diye bir sormak istiyorum kapatmadan önce. Yok, teşekkür ederim. So, before closing up, so I would like ask all the speakers to make just very brief 2-3 minute conclusion remark that again like just final says that you would like to have, also just make a kind of a summary of what we discussed and just also share the latest opinions or maybe suggestions, so how we can create a better environment for Turkish upstream. And this time I would like to start with Sean and then come Andrew from this side.
Yes, very briefly I said that Valour made the decision to come to Turkey and to work in Turkey, and it's a decision that we have not regretted at all. We found the environment working here very supportive, and that's from both the ministry level, the regulator level, the people on the ground, the local farmers that we work with. It is a very positive area in which to work, and we think the decision has been great. We're pleased to be able to really apply new technology in areas, to apply some of the science that we've seen in North America, and to transfer as much of that technology as we can to our staff over here to try and build them up. At this moment, we have 2 of our staff from Tekirdağ are actually over in Calgary, working over there, and our team over there, and then they'll come back over here. So it's that sharing of knowledge and transfer that is also very important to cooperate with the country in that. But from our point of view, it's just going to be a very exciting next 6 months, and we hope that with our success, it will yield Turkey's success.
Thank you. Murat?
Ben söylemek istediğim her şeyi belirttim. Çok teşekkür ediyorum.
Thank you so much. Chris?
Yeah, from my perspective, definitely repeat what I said before in terms of the incentivization and just getting the message out there of what Turkey has to offer. Beyond that, I mentioned a number of things that possibly the government can do to make life of the smaller operators a bit easier. But I would leave you this, the energy world as a whole. This is beyond EMP and beyond oil and gas. The energy spectrum is changing, and that offers a lot of opportunities as well as challenges. But to me, the global leader is not out there yet. And Turkey has a lot of talent, a lot of very well-educated people from university and people in business. And there's a chance here to jump on that and take the leadership role in some of these elements that are opening up. Because, as I said, there's no leader in this area yet, not in the West, not anywhere.
Thank you.
Well,
Andrew?
it's simple. I think Turkey's got a very upbeat message. Good projects get financed, and this country has good projects.
Good, thank you. Thank you. So, obviously what we see is, especially individually myself, I can say I just feel much more optimistic about the future of Turkish upstream industry. Obviously there are lots of opportunities. I think we just need to keep on working hard together, much more organized, and everything will come itself. So, sizlere çok teşekkür ederiz vaktinizi ayırdığınız için. Senin sonumuza geldik. Hayırlı günler dileriz. Çok sağ olun. Thank you so much.
Teşekkürler.
Ve 15 dakikalık kahve molasının ardından bir diğer oturumumuzda görüşmek üzere.